Okay, so go ahead and sign in on the Nearpod, and there's the link in the chat. And let me get that open and start sharing it. All right, so thank you already to Anthony, to who else did I see there? No, wrong window. Thank you to Anthony, to Akira, to Jesus, to William. All right, so thank you for just going right away to join the Nearpod. Okay. We are in such a tight schedule that if you see me looking this way, I have I have a stopwatch running because I need to make sure we are like moving on time. So yeah, that's if you see me looking, that's what I'm looking at. So all right, that being said, we are going to start the Nearpod in like 1 minute, okay? So
Maestro, yo no podía entrar.
no, what's wrong? Quickly, tell me what's wrong. ¿Qué te dicen?
No, es que no podía entrar, estoy iniciando ahora.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right, got it. There you go. I sent the link again, and I guess I should send the code, but I think everyone's able to sign in without the code. All right, 30 seconds left. In 30 seconds, we're gonna get started on the Nearpod lesson, okay? 30 segundos vamos a comenzar la sesión de Nearpod. Who's sending a message? Oh, so are you guys a little late because you were late in Miss Torres' class?
Yes.
Oh, I'm just looking. Okay, cool. Like there's 15 of you already in the Nearpod session, and it looks like there's 19 people who are on Zoom. So once again, Zoom people, okay, I'm going to send the the link to the Nearpod one more time. Okay, and we're gonna get started, okay? Because it is a lot of things we need to talk about. All right, let's go. I'm gonna start the Nearpod lesson now. All right. Today we are discussing topics of racism, discrimination, and the Holocaust. Okay. Like I told you a couple of days ago, what we're focusing on the next couple of weeks, really, we're talking about World War II, but specifically, we're talking about the Holocaust. Okay. All right. So first, we're going to talk about, I guess a way for us to think about this is we're going to talk about this idea of a stereotype. All right. And the question is, what is a stereotype? Could someone please read the definition for a stereotype?
Mm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Overgeneralize belief about a particular category or group of people. It is an expectation that people might have about every person of this particular.
Thank you, Karen. All right, so here is the translations for that in case you didn't quite understand it. But basically, a stereotype is like when you believe something about a group of people. You know, it can be a group of people based on race, it can be a group of people based on religion, it could be a group of people based on nationality, based on gender, okay, based on sexual orientation. You can have stereotypes based on all these different types of categories, okay? But basically, once you have that stereotype in your mind, uh, you tend to apply this idea to that person, to those people, every time you meet them, every time you think about them, you know. So that is basic, that is a stereotype. All right. And what we're going to do to warm up, what we're going to do first is this, okay? We're gonna be looking at some stereotypes and we're going to have some discussions about them. Okay. Lo que vamos a hacer primero es ver unos ejemplos de estereotipos y después vamos a tener como una discusión sobre ellos. All right. Now, of course, this requires you all to be mature. Requiere que todos ustedes estén maduros y and you treat the topic with respect. Y que traten el tema con respeto. So I'm only doing this because I trust that you guys will be able to do it. Okay. Solamente estamos haciendo esto porque yo tengo fe de que ustedes pueden hacerlo con respeto y con madurez. Okay. So let's get started. Okay. And so we're going to do this quick activity first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a stereotype. Okay. We're going to look at a couple of examples. And what I want you to do is I want you to choose one of these three options for the stereotype. Okay. Quiero que elijan una de estas tres opciones para el estereotipo que estoy enseñándoles. All right. The first option is yes, you believe this is true. So the first one is yes, that you believe the stereotype is true. No, you believe that the stereotype is not true. Or you have never heard about this stereotype before. Okay, so those are your three options. All right. I guess in order for us to be like to have a discussion, I want you to try your best to like answer honestly. Quiero que puedan responder honestamente a estas preguntas para poder tener la discusión, ¿verdad? And don't worry, I'm going to do my best here so that you can answer honestly and other people will not know how you answer. Okay, yo voy a hacer lo mejor que pueda aquí para que puedan responder honestamente sin que las demás gente se dé cuenta de lo que están diciendo. Okay. Yes, William?
Yeah, Mister, it's not letting me like answer.
Oh, we haven't started yet.
Oh,
We're going to go to the next one. Okay, no problem. All right, so all set? All right, here we go. And
Mr.
I'll...
Martin,
Yeah?
¿puede decirlo en español, por favor?
Oh, sí. So, básicamente aquí voy a darles unos ejemplos de estereotipos y tienen que decir, por ejemplo, si sí creen ese estereotipo, o si no lo creen, que es verdad, o si nunca han oído sobre ese estereotipo. ¿Ok? Y elegir así. So we're going to start the first one. And like I said, I'm going to hide it so you guys can't see each other's responses, okay? And you have 1 minute, 30 seconds to respond. So here's the first stereotype we're looking at. Asians are good at math. El primer estereotipo es que los asiáticos son buenos en matemáticas. Okay, we're still waiting on like 3 people. We're still waiting on 2 people. That's something interesting to bring up in our discussion, Anthony. That's a good point. Okay, you have about 15 more seconds to respond. All right, the time is up. All right, so let's look at these together. Let's look at your responses together. Okay, so this is how you all answered for this question. For Asians are good at math. So 45% of you say that yes, you believe this is true. About 22% of you say that you do not believe this is true. A couple of you didn't answer, and remember I'm using my student account, so I never answer these, but so one person didn't answer. but 13 of you have never heard about this before. Interesting. Could I just have like maybe one person to maybe explain, and you don't have to put from your perspective, but like the majority of people said that they believe this is true. So why do you believe this is true? Like, where does this come from? Akira?
I believe this is true because in Asia there's a lot of people that work with technology and they are too advanced, and technology have a lot of math.
Oh, I see. So like, so do you think like there's just like there's like the reputation or like how we see Asia, it has lots of technology. So you need to have good math skills to be able to do the technology.
Yes.
Huh, interesting. Oh, and Kira, can you translate that for us, please?
¿Qué? Que lo digo en español.
Yeah. Mhm.
Que yo creo que los asiáticos son buenos en matemática porque ellos tienen mucha tecnología mucho más avanzada, entonces para la tecnología se necesita mucha matemática.
Mm. All right. Okay, I think that's fair. Thank you, Akira. And if you guys want to talk about it a little bit more, we're gonna have like a discussion after this. So I just wanted to hear one of your thoughts, like for each survey. Okay. But thank you guys for sharing. Let's go on to the next one. Let me pause the share. All right. So here's another stereotype. Black people are better athletes. So what do you think about this stereotype? Black people are better athletes. Do you think it's true? Do you believe it's not true? Or you've never heard about this stereotype before? All right, you have about 25 seconds to respond. All right. So let's see the results for this class. All right. So for the stereotype, Black people are better athletes. 36% of you said, yes, you believe this is true. 27% have never heard about this before. 22% gave no answer, and 13% said that they do not believe this is true. Okay. So I feel like there's, compared to in other classes, there was more diversity in your answers, but I think still more of you believe that Black people are better athletes. So would anyone like to explain why perhaps people think this? And remember, I'm not asking you to share your thoughts. You can just say like why you think some people would believe that Black people are better athletes. If you're comfortable, okay, of course. Would anyone? Well, Dania?
Yo creo, sí, sí. Yo creo porque, ¿cómo me explico? Tú ves esa película donde siempre hay como negro y gente blanca, siempre a la gente blanquita lo ponen de pendejo y que no saben hacer como pelea y eso, y a la gente morena como que ponen guau, lo más fuerte y eso y lo otro. Entonces como que nos quedamos con esa mentalidad que ellos son fuertes y que son buenos para diferentes deportes, porque si usted se fija, en muchos deportes, vamos a decir, en el basquetbol no hay casi gente blanca, lo que hay es gente morena.
Mhm.
Y así, sí. Y
All right.
también, ya, era eso. Terminé.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you, Ladanya. So let me just talk about the second part because I think that's in like, and we'll go back to the first part. So Daniel's talking about said that, when we're talking about basketball, when she, you talk about the NBA, like you really only see black people in the NBA. And I see Karen's hand raised. I see Karen's hands up. So I'm going to go ahead to the question because I think what Wildania shared is connected to the question. Okay, so we're just going to get into that discussion now. All right, give me 1 second. All right, and there you go. So one of the questions I'm asking right now, we can have a little discussion, is where do these stereotypes come from? All right. Well, Dania said that in the movies, they always represent like maybe the white person as being like weaker or something like that. And then in the movies, they show like the black person being like better at sports, and people are like, "Ooh, wow, like, ooh, check them out," kind of thing. So like for people to applaud the fact that how good they are. So I think, Wildania, for your response, one part you're saying is like, where do these stereotypes come from? I think Wildania is saying like in movies, like you can think of like some of these stereotypes coming from movies. Karen, what did you want to say?
I want to say that maybe it's because his legs are longer, and maybe that helps him to be better.
Oh, okay. So you're saying like maybe like you're just thinking like maybe it's a physical thing, like maybe black people have longer legs, right? Okay, so like just physical things. Okay. Um, and yeah, so I think maybe you just think like, if you have to think about it, maybe just physically like it's a little different. Okay. um does anyone else have any other ideas about like where do these stereotypes come from? I see two people's hands up. I see Anthony. Go ahead, Anthony.
¿Verdad? Aquí estamos hablando de atletismo, cualquier deporte. Porque ellos se enfocaron en la NBA porque usted puso una foto de LeBron James.
Okay.
En muchos deportes, los blancos son mejores que los negros, como
All right.
natación.
Como que?
Natación.
Okay, like swimming. All right. All right, so Anthony says, like, I put a picture of LeBron James, so maybe that made people think about basketball. But he's saying that maybe, like, if you look at all the sports, like, there are a lot of places where white people are better. And I think, for example, he said swimming. It seems like like white people seem to be better at swimming. Okay. Or water events in general. Let's see. King Karen, your hands up from before. Well, then your hands up from before. All right, so what Wildania mentioned is that stereotypes maybe they come from like what we see in movies. Where else do you think we get these ideas about people from? ¿Dónde más creen que sacamos estas ideas sobre personas, sobre grupos? Películas y qué más? Karen, go ahead.
Yo pienso que también en las competencias como Olimpiadas se pueden sacar resultados así. Saber.
Interesting. I never thought about that. So maybe like if you watch the Olympics, you'll just see that some countries, some groups of people are better at certain events. Okay, and like maybe they always win, right? Quizás hay como eventos que un país, un grupo de gente siempre ganan, ¿verdad? Entonces piensas, pues van a ser mejores para eso, ¿verdad? Okay, I think that's interesting. All right, now, like we're talking about like good at math, and we're talking about better athletes. Do you think that these stereotypes are okay because they're positive? ¿Creen que pensando de esos estereotipos está bien porque pues son positivos, ¿verdad? Pues creen que está bien que estemos como que, no sé, que existen estos estereotipos porque son positivos? Wildania, go ahead.
Pues la verdad, no son tan positivos que digamos.
Explica.
Porque en el atletismo, como dijo Anthony, la gente blanca son buenas en natación y la gente morena en basquetbol. O sea, esos son los ejemplos que dijimos. Y vamos a decir que por cosas de la vida cambia y los blanquitos cambian el rol y se vuelven mejores en la NBA y los morenitos en el atletismo. Lo que quiero decir que no depende de tu color, depende como lo que tú desarrolles, porque un negrito puede desarrollarse más en el agua que en la NBA.
Mhm.
Entiendo mi
Okay.
punto. Sí.
Mhm. Hmm.
Y sobre los chinitos que son de que saben matemática, puede ser que sí, porque como dijo Akira, puede ser que para tener mucha tecnología tiene que haber mucha matemática, pero no todos estos son inteligentes.
Mhm.
Sí.
So, a mí lo que se me hace interesante es que tú dices que, mira, en el atletismo pueden cambiar las cosas. Personas pueden poner diferentes esfuerzos, ¿verdad? Pueden mejorar en básquetbol o pueden mejorar en deportes de agua, ¿verdad? Pero, pero para ti es diferente como los estudios o la tecnología o la inteligencia, ¿verdad? A mí se me hace eso interesante, que son como dos diferentes cosas que quizás unas personas no pueden mejorar cuando es como para inteligencia, algo así. I just find that interesting. Priscilla y Delfina, and then we'll move on.
I think, yo pienso que aunque el estereotipo sea bueno, no es bueno tenerle un estereotipo a la gente, porque a veces eso hace expectativas de ti. Por ejemplo, como el estereotipo que los asiáticos son buenos en matemática. Hay asiáticos también, tal vez, que no son buenos en esa materia, o mucha gente de color que no son buenas en los deportes. Esos son estereotipos, aunque sean buenos, a veces hacen expectativas de ti.
Interesting. So Priscilla says it's not good. Even if these things are positive, it's not good because what happens is that these stereotypes create like expectations of you. Like if there's a stereotype about your group of people and you're not very good at it, or then these positive stereotypes become like a stress or something like that on you, or maybe you're disappointed. Maybe you think, oh, I guess I'm not really one of my people because I can't do that thing. I get that, Priscilla. I sometimes I connect with that too. I understand that. Delfina?
Yo estoy de acuerdo con Priscila que aunque los estereotipos no, ah, son positivos, no está bien porque el color o el color del cuerpo no importa, todos tienen habilidad y algunos hacen los estereotipos para desanimar a otros y descompensarlos.
Okay, that's interesting. So you agree with Priscilla, and you're saying that sometimes these stereotypes are used like as a way to maybe put those people down. Like if you don't connect to that stereotype, then it's a way to like maybe like even attack people, to say like, hey, you're not really da 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 because you can't do that, right? I think that's interesting. Huh. So I think it's interesting also that you guys are saying like, no, that these stereotypes are not positive. Like even though they seem positive, they're not positive. I think that demonstrates that you guys are like thinking more critically about things. Well, I think it's good that you guys are able to see like maybe the not positive aspects of stereotypes that are positive, that seem positive, right? So, but let's look at the other side a little bit, okay? So we're gonna do another two stereotypes and then we're gonna have a discussion, okay? And I think this time what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do the surveys, look at the results, and then we'll have the discussion right after, okay? All right, let's see. Same thing. Yes, you believe it. No, you don't believe it's true, or you've never heard of it. All right. All right, so here's the stereotype. Many Mexicans are criminals. So what do you think? Do you believe this is true? No, you don't believe this is true, or you've never heard about this stereotype. At 30 seconds left. All right. So let's see the results. All right. So for the stereotype of many Mexicans are criminals, oh wow, it's pretty close, I guess. So the majority of you, is it the majority? Yeah, said that no, you believe this is not true. Although the same number of people said that you just didn't answer, you refused to answer. So that's also interesting. 22% said you'd never heard about this before, and 22% have said that yes, you believe this is true. Okay, so there, if you look at the numbers, there are clearly some people who believe that this stereotype is true. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is, give me 1 second. Okay. All right. So let's go on to the next one and then we'll discuss. Okay. All right. So here's the next stereotype. Black people are uneducated. So, yes, you believe this is true. No, you do not believe this is true. And C, you have never heard of this before. Yeah, that's all we're talking about, Sir Djokovic. Right. We have about 30 seconds left. All right. So time's up. Let's see the results. All right. So for the stereotype of black people are uneducated, you put down, more than most of you said that you believe, more than half of you said that no, you don't believe this is true. Some of you, like 18%, didn't answer. 13 have said you've never heard of this before, but there are also 13% who said that, yeah, you believe this is true. All right. So I think this is also a time for us to think about where these things come from, right? So I'm going to just try to set it up so that we put both of these responses side by side. That might help. Okay. Okay, so here are the responses, okay? For these two statistics. Well, I guess my question, oh, hold on. Resume share. Okay, so here are the responses for both of these statistics. These survey results. Um, so I guess the question is like, I felt there was a different energy. Like I saw some of your chats. Why was it more difficult, or how did you feel about answering these survey questions? ¿Cómo se sintieron responder a respondiendo a estos estereotipos? Stojakovic?
Mete, la verdad,
Mm-hmm.
para responder esta pregunta es un poco complicado. Una razón sería para no sonar un poco racista,
Mm-hmm.
pues responderla, por uno decir que sí, otro decir que no, no estoy de acuerdo. Yo pienso que es muy difícil, la verdad, responderlo. Muy difícil.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Stojakovic says that he feels it's very difficult to answer just because he feels that depending on how you answer it, you might seem a little racist. So I think that's a fair feeling. I think if you feel that way, that's okay, and I don't think that's anything negative, Stojakovic, because you're saying like you feel that this is a little racist, so maybe maybe that's good that you kind of think like, no, I think there's something wrong about this. So maybe that's a good thing. Crees que quizás te sientes como que si fuera algo mal, entonces es bueno que sientas eso porque tienes como algo en tu mente que dice, no, no, quizás eso no está bien, ¿verdad? So I think that's a good thing. I saw a lot of hands up. Let's see. Let me see if there's anyone who hasn't shared yet. Oh, Alexandra, go ahead.
Um, I'm not gonna be racist, like you say.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna say my opinion.
Yeah.
Por ejemplo, muchos mexicanos son criminales. No, no todos los mexicanos son criminales, porque si vemos, hay personas buenas. Y los negros no tienen educación. Algunos de ellos no, pero otros sí.
Mhm. So you're saying like, but that you can say that about anything, right? Alexandra, puedes decir eso sobre cualquier cosa, ¿verdad? Que puedes decir, algunos mexicanos son criminales, ok, pero otros no. Algunos puertorriqueños son criminales, pero otros no. Algunos dominicanos son criminales, pero otros no. So you can say that about lots of things, right? But I think it's good that you're saying like maybe saying many is not good. Maybe saying that like all Black people are uneducated, that's also not good. I think that shows that you're thinking about things. All right, there's a lot of hands up. Let's go to Priscilla.
Yo pienso que muchas personas piensan esos estereotipos porque todo el mundo tiene diferentes experiencias con las personas. No es yo estoy de acuerdo con Jacobit que no es por no sonar racista, pero también hay gente que tiene diferentes tipos de experiencia. Hay algunas personas que son menos educadas o que sí son criminales, pero el otra parte no lo son. Y mucha gente piensa en esos estereotipos por las experiencias que le cuentan o que escuchan.
Okay, so so what Priscilla is saying is that maybe it really depends on where you're getting this information from. Like there are different places that people get this information from, and that's what's affecting how we think about things. Hay muchos lugares donde sacamos esta información y de eso nos está afectando cómo es lo que pensamos sobre eso, ¿verdad? Like like let's think about like I just think about the discussion I had yesterday with some of the students. So let's think about this stereotype: Black people are uneducated. Okay, where have you heard this from? Like, do you hear it from like I think for the many Mexicans are criminals, I understand that a lot of that comes from like television, it comes from movies, okay, because that's where I see a lot of like people who are Mexican or who are playing people who are Mexican. You see that they're oftentimes shown as criminals, like drug dealers, things like that. So like that's where people get that idea from. But for Black people are uneducated, where do you guys hear that from? ¿Dónde escuchan esa de que los negros no tienen educación? ¿Dónde es donde escuchan eso?
en la calle
En la calle. Be more specific, Stojakovic. ¿Cómo que de la calle?
y de la gente que tiene mala experiencia con esa persona.
Mm, okay.
To be
So
honest, Mr. Martin, sorry.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead,
To
William.
be in my opinion, it's not the uneducated. It's because of the people they're being with or who raised them. Because their father didn't be educated and they were like in gangs and all this crazy stuff. You know, right? And then they see how they being. That's what happens when you're growing. You have a perspective of how
Hmm.
it's life, you know.
Hmm.
And
Well, William, like it feels. Well, I think my question isn't like why do you think black people are uneducated? That's not my question. My question is like why do you think people believe that black people are uneducated?
because black people do stupid stuff
Well,
like
couldn't
killing.
yeah, but couldn't you say that lots of different people do stupid stuff? It's not just black people.
No, I'm a black
Like,
person, but I still think my that's then they're saying they want to be, oh, black my life matters, blah blah blah, and I'm a black person, so
hmm
I, it's sad to see they're talking about freedom, black life matters, blah blah blah, but then show them that you could be a civil person. Don't show them that you're uneducated. You know.
hmm Well, I mean, I think there's to be honest, there's a lot to talk about like what you're discussing. If I'm being honest, it's I think just because like there's I feel like the perspective you're displaying, like especially like saying like oh like people who go out to protest or people who are taking those kinds of actions, like I guess you're saying that you know that they're just complaining or maybe that it's just like they need to be protesting in a better way. um, but I also feel like those are kind of I feel like those are ways that maybe people who don't quite understand why people are protesting or protesting the way that they are, they don't understand. Maybe it's from people who don't understand that a lot of the civil ways or the more quote unquote like educated ways for people to protest, like there's been a lot of black people who have already tried those ways, and if there are some black people who are doing protesting in ways or reacting in ways that are you know that are not it doesn't look good, maybe if you want to say that they're destroying cars or they're breaking windows or something like that. um, there's a lot of other people who tried it different ways that were peaceful, that were without violence, and people still ignore them. So I don't know, I guess a lot of that stuff. It comes from frustration too, you know. Um, so I mean, I guess that's all I can say really to address like just that one part of what you're saying. But it's I don't know. It's a lot of that whole thing is like a whole other discussion, to be honest with him. But I think it's interesting to know that that maybe you're thinking you have like a different perspective, where you have that perspective where you have the question, you wonder why people who are doing the Black Lives Matter movement, why are they doing it that way? Why is it um, that their
Uh,
protests are
I'm
done
not
that way?
saying it that way. It's because then they're walking in the streets and they ask themselves, "Oh, why do white people think about me like this? That I'm a thief? That I'm gonna steal them? I'm gonna shoot them? Whatever." It's because of what they do. I don't. I know why they're protesting. I don't. I'm not saying why. I know why. I'm
Hmm.
talking about you do this, but then you want this. It
Hmm.
doesn't make sense, you know? then
Hmm.
people are gonna see you as another person. First, take actions.
Hmm.
After talking, like, do the right thing. Don't do the bad thing.
Hmm. Well, I guess that's, if we're having the discussion about stereotypes, I think I guess one important point that needs to be made is like, why do people make these generalizations, right? Because to be honest, I feel like a lot of what you're saying is based on generalizations. And so I think about, where do these generalizations come from? Do they come from, like, why do people think that certain groups of people, like for example in this case, why do black people, um, why do people think that they do a lot of bad things? Why do they people think of black people as, like, being in gangs or being criminals? So I guess, I'm thinking about, what they show on the news, like, a lot of new, like when the people are placed on the news, it's because of, you know a lot of the bad stuff that people do, right? So they talk about, like, a lot of the, like, and I think it's the same for, like, Mexicans too. Like, there's, like, recently, like not too long ago, there's a lot of focus on, like, the drug cartels, right? In Mexico. So I think a lot of people, they started to think that, well, I think Mexico is full of crime, and that there's a lot, and so Mexicans are all criminals, right? But if that's all they show on the news, then of course people are going to think that way. And I think it's similar to with black people. Like, if that's all of that they show on the news, or that's how they're shown on television shows, or that's how they're shown in movies, like, how is it that people who are not friends with them, how are they going to, or who live in their same neighborhoods, how are they going to think differently? How are we expected to, how will anyone think differently of these people if that's all they see? If all they see are on TV, on in movies, on the news, if all they see is the negative things that people do, then how and they never talk to a black person, and for real, they don't have any black friends, they don't go to a school or go to an environment or a community or a neighborhood where there are just black people living their lives. How are they supposed to really see how the people really are? And I'm not saying that's a question for you, I'm saying in general, like, um, I think that's like a big question. Like, how are we able to get real perspectives about people, when we don't really, like, interact with them, when we don't really form relationships with them, you know? I think that's like a bigger question. Like, how do we do that? Let me. All right. So thank you guys for the discussion. I'm going to continue forward with the few minutes that we have left. But to be honest, I really like the fact that you guys were talking about this. Okay, I see some hands are up.
Mr.
I'm
Malte.
Will Danya. I see some hands are up, but
No,
okay,
no,
just
no.
yeah.
No participar. Es para decirle algo. Leslie no está en la clase porque ella no tiene buena conexión. Nada más se lo quería dejar saber para que sepa que ella sí quiere estar en su clase, pero no tiene conexión a internet.
Okay. All
Ok,
right. Thank
okay,
you.
ya.
That's it. Thank you. Hold on. I accidentally closed the window that all right. Well, give me 1 second. I'm just going to pause the share and go to the next one. Okay. So we are going to, so we did that. Okay. So I'm going to, this is going to seem really quick, but I'm going to just explain some of the reasons and some of the connections that I wanted you to make for this lesson. Okay. And hopefully you'll understand what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Um, so we talked about stereotypes, and when we think about stereotypes, these are connected to this idea called prejudice. Okay, prejuicio. And prejudice is basically like when you have these unreasonable feelings, opinions, or attitudes, and especially of a hostile nature, especially like it's a negative thing. about an ethnic group, a racial group, or social group, or religious group, or other types of groups, right? So I think this is connected to stereotypes, because basically what this is this is, let's say for example that um, all you hear are negative stereotypes about Mexicans, okay? For example, hay que decir que, por ejemplo, solamente escuchas estereotipos negativos sobre mexicanos, ¿verdad? But you never really see a Mexican, pero en la realidad nunca has hablado con un mexicano. And what happens is basically the stereotypes may affect how you think about this group, right? Los estereotipos quizás empiezan a afectar cómo es que tú piensas sobre esa gente. And then when you really have to interact or talk to a Mexican, then you might have these feelings, especially like negative feelings towards them. And it's not because of the fault of the person, but it's because of the stereotypes that you heard about them. Y quizás no es, por ejemplo, no es porque después cuando conoces a una persona en verdad, un mexicano en verdad, tienes estos sentimientos, estas opiniones sobre ellos, pero la verdad es que, pues, y eso no es por la persona verdad específica, sino es porque has escuchado tantas cosas negativas sobre esa persona que de ese grupo de personas que cuando conoces a una persona en verdad, pues automáticamente vas a sentir esos sentimientos. Y, y es difícil, ¿verdad? Y yo pienso que es un poco injusto. I think it's a little bit unfair, right? Because then the person doesn't have an opportunity to really show you like what kind of person they are. Después es injusto porque la verdad es que cuando tienes esos prejuicios es injusto a las personas porque no puedes, no les quitas la oportunidad a esa persona de demostrarte cómo eres como una persona, ¿verdad? De cómo eres cómo es tu carácter, right? Do you guys understand this idea of prejudice? ¿Sí entienden sobre el prejuicio? ¿Sí tiene sentido? Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Sí.
Sí,
Yeah.
entendemos.
Okay, so it's very connected to stereotypes. Es muy conectado a los estereotipos. All right. Okay, so we're gonna skip ahead just because I'm trying to get to like the whole point of this. But I think I would just say that I think we all sort of have our own prejudices. Okay, que nosotros todos tenemos nuestros propios prejuicios, and I think that's because we're all human and we all live in society, right? All right, so we're thinking about stereotypes, we're thinking about prejudice, and these are all connected to like the bigger idea of racism too, okay? Cuando estamos hablando de estereotipos y también de prejuicios, eso conecta con la idea más grande que es el racismo. I think Stojakovic, I think he mentioned, for example, that he thought it was very difficult to answer some of these surveys because he felt like they were a little racist, right? And I think in some way he's right because they are connected. Like the stereotypes do connect to racism. So Jacques decía difícil de responder alguna de estas preguntas porque él se sentía como si eran un poquito racistas. Y la verdad es que, pues sí, estos estereotipos son racistas, ¿verdad? De alguna manera, right? Tienen como un nivel de racismo. And let me make it very clear what the definition of racism is. So this is racism, okay? So racism is the belief that one's race is superior or better than another race. And racism can be hidden or something that's very obvious and open. So, you know, like basically racism is you believe that your race is better than other races. That's it. Like that's the most basic way to explain it. Que es la manera más fácil o más básica que podemos definir el racismo es que tú crees que tu raza es mejor o superior a otra raza, all right? And there's different like levels of racism. Hay diferentes niveles de racismo, all right? So some things are hidden, you know, like for example, like stereotypes. And maybe if you make, for example, if you make a joke about a race, that's like something that's maybe more subtle. Es como algo más sutil, ¿verdad? Like you're kind of being a little racist, but you're making a joke about it. And it's like you know, it's difficult to see like if you're really, really racist by just having like a joke, right? Es muy difícil como saber qué tan racista es una persona, por ejemplo, si hace como nomás, hace un chiste que es racista, ¿verdad? But there are other ways that are more obvious, like I think we've seen on the news, for example, that we've seen people who have marched or protested, who were like groups who were white supremacist groups, right? Hemos visto noticias que ha habido como protestas con gente blanca que son partes de grupos que dicen que son partes de grupos que son de white supremacists, que piensan que la gente blanca son suprema, que son mejores que los demás, ¿verdad? Hemos visto noticias que han habido como protestas sobre eso también. So I think that's something more obvious. Like they are openly saying, hey, my race is better than you. Ellos están como más fuertemente más obvios diciendo que su raza es mejor que las demás. But I want you to realize that there's different levels, and even when you do like a stereotype, cuando estás haciendo como estereotipo, like it's a level of racism. Es como un nivel de racismo si estás diciendo, por ejemplo, un estereotipo, o si estás dando como un chiste que es en contra de otra raza, porque todavía es un nivel de racismo, you know. But I will say that, you know, these are all feelings, right? Todos esos son sentimientos, right? Son opiniones. They are opinions. We're going to skip ahead. So, and here's the thing. So when you think of racism, it is more of a feeling or something that you think. Cuando estás hablando del racismo, es algo que lo que sientes o lo que piensas, ¿verdad? So just by itself, it's not, I wouldn't say it's all that like harmful to other people. Como si estamos hablando de racismo que son pensamientos simplemente o sentimientos simplemente, no es como, se puede decir que no estás dañando a otra gente. These are just like feelings you have, right? But then the racism turns into action. Después el racismo se convierte en acciones. And that's when it becomes harmful. Y así es cuando se convierte en algo que puede dañar a los demás. Es cuando el racismo ya no es solamente sentimientos o pensamientos, pero sino se convierte en acciones. And so one form of racism that I can talk to you about is this idea of discrimination, okay? Una forma de racismo se puede decir que son acciones, es la discriminación, okay? So for those of you who are not sure what discrimination is, discrimination is an unfair or different treatment towards someone based on their race, religion, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, immigration status, etc. Like there's lots of different uh, things that people can discriminate you for, but but discrimination is basically that you're treated differently because of like your identity. Básicamente la discriminación es que te están tratando diferente simplemente por tu identidad. So it can be because, you know, of your nationality, like maybe you're Dominican, for example, and people treat you differently. That would be a form of discrimination. Um, or maybe you have a different religion. Maybe you're Muslim, quizás eres musulmán, and then you're treated differently because of that. That's also discrimination. Si te están tratando diferente, por ejemplo, si porque eres musulmán, entonces es discriminación. All right. And I guess to make it more clear, let me give you some specific examples of types of discrimination. Déjame darles unos ejemplos específicos sobre diferentes tipos de discriminación. Okay. So there is job discrimination. Es la discriminación de trabajo. So, you know, sometimes people, when they have jobs, they like maybe they'll hire someone who's white, or maybe they'll hire someone because they're a woman or a man or something like that. But that's job discrimination because you're getting the job or not getting the job based on some part of your identity, but not because you are good for that job, right? There's also housing discrimination, and that's basically like people don't let you rent an apartment or buy a house because of the, for example, the color of your skin. Que simplemente por tu raza no dejan que compres una casa, o quizás no te dejan rentar un apartamento porque quizás dicen esas personas que no queremos que estén viviendo aquí como, no sé, un dominicano, o no queremos que esté viviendo aquí estas personas negras, ¿verdad? Like that would be an example of housing discrimination. Legal discrimination is when it's actually in laws. So in this country, in the United States, in the 1950s and 1960s, they used to, and it's in lots of places they had different sections for white people and a different section for black people. Like there will be restaurants, for example, where there would be a section of the restaurant that's dedicated for white people and a section of the restaurant that's dedicated to black people. And sometimes there was restaurants where they would just say, "Hey, no black people allowed." Okay, this restaurant is only for white people. So like there was in this the 1960s is where, you know, like that's where that sort of thing ended, but you know it's very common in different parts of the country. And of course, like what we've seen this year with the protest against police brutality, this is would also be a form of discrimination because, you know, the whole thing about discrimination is that you are treated differently because of who you are. Quizás toda la cosa de discriminación es que te están tratando diferente por tu identidad. So, you know, the whole protest about Black Lives Matter is the way that police officers react differently and more violently towards black suspects compared to white suspects, right? Or other suspects. Que con las protestas están porque están diciendo que los policías están tratando diferente a los sospechosos negros y están tratando de forma más violenta en comparación a en comparación a sospechosos que son blancos, right? So that's the whole reason of because they're protesting. So that's also a form of discrimination, right? So I hope you guys understand what discrimination is, right? Se tienen, si tienen idea de lo que es la discriminación.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And guys, I'm sorry that I'm going like, I feel like I'm just going fast in this. I apologize for that. But there is a point to it, okay? And yeah, so let me explain why the whole point of this is, okay? And I did like the discussions at the beginning of class, okay? So I understand that that's why it's taking a little longer, but that's, I like the discussions. Um, so, um, so here's the big thing, okay? And this is the question I want you to think about. Like, what do you think would happen if the government endorsed or supported discrimination against a group of people, right? So, like, what do you think would happen if the government endorsed or supported discrimination against a group of people, right? Um, and so, like, that sounds like a horrible thing, right? That that, you know, because I think we think of a government as it's supposed to protect its people, right? Quizás estamos pensando que el gobierno debe de proteger a su gente, ¿verdad? So like if people are being discriminated against in their jobs or in schools or, you know, at where they live or by the police, like this is not good. The government should take steps to stop this, right? Si están discriminando contra la gente de un país, basado en como su raza, por ejemplo, entonces la expectativa es que pues el gobierno tiene que hacer algo para parar eso, ¿verdad? I know, but it's like, okay. So, yeah. So I guess to wrap this up, right? You don't really have to imagine this. This is what happened, okay? Esto ya sucedió. So this is what happened. What happens is like when the government really endorses or pushes discrimination, it leads to something called genocide.
Mr.
Okay.
Martin,
What's up, Anthony?
ahora toca mi terramo.
I know. Well, let's see. How can we?
Anthony, ¿y por qué tú coges mi puesto de
All right. So,
avisarle?
all right.
Eso no
So,
se
just give me 2 minutes, okay? And just wrap it up. Okay, 2 minutos, okay?
No, we can stay in this class.
Okay, I'll just give you just 2 minutes, okay? 2 more minutes, and then you can go. And then I'll have to talk with Miss Torres because she holds you guys longer too. Okay. So what is genocide? So genocide is the deliberate, systematic, and organized destruction or murder of a racial, political, or cultural group. So, I mean, this is what happens when the government says it is okay for people to discriminate against other people, right? That's basically what it leads to. Like, there's no time when the people say, okay, this is enough discrimination against these people. No, like people will push and push and push. And basically, the last step in causing with racism and discrimination is genocide. El último paso, si estás como del racismo y de la discriminación hacia un grupo de personas, es el genocidio. And when we're talking about World War II, well, this is what happened during World War II. And this is called the Holocaust, okay? So the Holocaust was a genocide committed by Nazi Germany against the Jewish people, all right? The actions of the Nazis caused the deaths of at least 6 million Jews. And when we're talking about everything we just discussed, right? Discrimination, racism, prejudice, all of these things happened in Germany during World War II, or even before World War II, against the Jewish people. Todas esas cosas de lo que hablamos, el racismo, la discriminación, el prejuicio, todo eso le pasó a la gente judía en Alemania durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial y pues, en los años antes de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, right? The difference is that the government supported it. Okay, la diferencia entre prejuicio y todo eso, y la diferencia es que el gobierno apoyó esas acciones. O sea, el gobierno apoyó el prejuicio, apoyó la discriminación y también apoyó el racismo hacia los judíos. Y es lo que finalmente causó el genocidio. All right. So we will continue this next week, okay? But thank you all for staying as long as you did, and I will talk to you later, okay?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.